I'd like to. Call the meeting to order, 4:02.
Okay.
If anyone has had a moment to review the minutes and would like to make a motion to approve,
I have, and I'll move the approved minutes.
thank you.
Is there an editable one that you already wanted to use? That's what I was told.
Like
The template?
not that I have right.
Okay.
Right this.
No, you're fine. It's just
Yeah,
double check.
yeah, pop it in anywhere and then maybe. And anybody who could second that?
Second.
All right, John Hickey. John H. All in favor?
I.
Okay, everybody.
I didn't take that off there. I just
Huh?
noticed it still says introduction of new members.
Yeah, well.
That's from the last.
Yeah, that's all right. It actually serves us today because
Oh, yeah, you got
we
it.
have Carson here with us today.
Yeah.
So Carson Coonsey, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm from Webster Groves High School and we've just kind of been wanting to connect the city and the school more. So I'm kind of just like a student rep from the high school, I guess.
Yes.
And yeah,
And luckily Carson's mom reached out to actually Mayor Laura last summer, I think, and then Carson and I have been trying to catch up for the school year, but she's a busy woman. And we finally got to connect, and I think there's gonna be you're a junior, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, some really kind of interesting opportunities that will lie ahead for us in the next year. So Carson, thanks for being a part of this.
yeah, thanks for letting me come.
Uh-huh.
You have a younger sister, by the way.
Logan, yes.
Okay, she was at school with my daughter.
Oh, cool.
At Hickson, so I think they're
So
That is
seventh
great.
grade.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Webster. Well, awesome. And then if everybody just wants to quickly go around and say your name, and then Carson can get to know you later.
There will be a test.
Yeah.
My name's John. I just had two boys who graduated from Webster High.
Cool.
You know, James Hickey or William Hickey.
Probably. Not off the top of my head, but
Okay.
Yeah, they're a touch older, right? Because wait.
A little
Um,
bit,
yeah.
yeah. They would have graduated 2 and 3 years ago.
yeah. So just a scotch older, yeah.
I am Director Battle and Lisa, the Director of Public Works here at Webster Groves.
I'm Tom Gray, the director of public works.
Full Bose. I have a son who's a junior at Webster right now. Oh, and
oh, cool.
Jeff Tomich.
I'm sorry, can I see your name too?
And then on Zoom, we have Elizabeth, and Elizabeth, I'm not sure you're able to unmute right now. It's okay if you're not.
Hi.
Hi, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Shappy has a couple of little guys at Clark, right? Mhm. And then I know Mike Staus is on as well. He just texted me. But he, for some reason, can't. Hey, Carla.
Oh, yeah, he's in it as an attendee.
Okay.
I want to promote him to panelist. But, oh, yeah, I guess.
Either. Thank you.
There we go. Now he's in the right.
There you are,
Oh,
Mike.
you're in the right spot.
there we go. Yeah, sorry.
It's all right. That's probably my fault.
Mike, you have high schoolers right now? I know you just have one that just graduated.
Yeah, we got one down in Mizzou and an 8th grader. She'll be at Webster next year.
Awesome. And then Carla, this is Carson. Coonsey. She's from the high school and she'll be like our high school rep. So we have
Great.
lots of fun opportunities ahead. And this is Carla, I won't
Nice to meet
introduce you, but you can introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Carla Armbruster and I teach at Webster University and I am on the student mission. And
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's good.
All right, so Carson, welcome. Feel free to ask questions as we go along, and then you and I can also connect afterwards if you have some questions that you didn't want to pipe up while we're here. Okay, awesome.
Do you have her email? So I can send her agendas and stuff?
That's a great idea, yeah, and also, you can be a member of the commission, just a non-voting member. So that's my power, I get to wield as chair, everybody watch out. So this is really awesome.
Do you want my email?
Yeah.
It's Carson, Karsen.
Hey.
Yes.
S-E-N, okay.
Dot Kunze, Kunze. And then @gmail.com.
All right.
Thanks, Todd. Okay, any emails or anything, Todd, to share with
I
us?
have nothing this month.
Cool.
Although I did get one today from a guy who wanted to know if we had any no more April signs. I said, no, sorry.
We
we're all
have
out."
no
He goes,
mow.
Well, I'm not gonna mow my yard till May. I said, that's fine. We suspended the ordinance. You can
Yeah,
fine."
yeah, I know, no sign necessary to participate. Yeah,
So
We'll
I
be able
noticed-
to tell you're doing it by looking at.
Yeah,
your
exactly.
yard.
You drive by, you're like, oh, they're not mowing. There's people who don't live in Webster that have those signs. I noticed.
Really?
Jogging in like Orson Woods.
They stole our sign.
I don't know, Webster system.
Stole our sign.
And I was like, what do I-
And that's great that it's so popular.
I look at the parks because we've got them in all the parks.
yeah.
So
I
they're
noticed
stealing
that.
from the parks.
That is right. Gosh, y'all are desperate for some no mo, that's right. Okay, awesome, thanks, Todd. Okay, we're gonna run through some old business, and then we've got some important things to discuss in new business. And please pipe up if I'm forgetting something. As far as complete streets goes, the traffic advisory subcommittee and our subcommittee met last week. And Paul shared with all of us an updated document. It was cleaned up ordinance language that we took care of, that Paul took tons of time to curate for us. And Carson, I can get that to you after this meeting as well, so you can take a peek at that if you're curious. And what we are going to determine with that is so the traffic folks meet right after us today. If you've had a chance to look at it, and you have anything that you'd like to add or disagree with, or would like to question, we'd like to discuss that here. The next steps for this language is for it to go, after traffic is going to discuss it in their meeting. And then we are going to say, okay, here's the document, we're gonna hand that to Todd and to Dr. Peoples. And then it'll be up to Dr. Peoples to distribute to appropriate staff for them to analyze and determine what this what works for city staff. And so it'll be a bit of an exchange like that until we get some language settled. And then, and I could be wrong on this, so correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, about the process. And then it would go to council after going through that editing process.
Yeah, I don't know if Dr. Peoples will want it at a work session first.
Good point.
Just to get it in front of the council.
Yes.
Know what they're voting on.
Yes, yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's the stuff that I missed. Thank you. So I will open the floor if anyone has any observations, any objections or questions about the language.
I just add from a process perspective, so we did circulate this prior to last month's meeting in draft forms. And then the joint subcommittee subsequently met last week. And based on that, we updated it a little bit. One of the primary things was to sort of characterize it as potentially either a resolution or an ordinance, which will have significant sort of procedural implications. Otherwise, there were not really too many substantive edits based on what was circulated about a month ago. So
Can you explain the implications of ordinance versus resolution?
as far as I understand it, if it's an ordinance, it's essentially has the force of law within the code.
Yes.
Go ahead, Todd, if you want to.
It's got it.
And a resolution is more of sort of directional for the city council, so that if someone, let's say there's a requirement in there that, for example, if there is some kind of roadwork being done, that the city make sure that pedestrian and bicycle access continues. while they make while that repair is going on. If that was an ordinance and you didn't do that, then it would be a violation. Whereas if it's a resolution, I guess, then it wouldn't technically be.
They just go by and go like.
It's just a more suggestion as a resolution.
Now, we did discuss like the merits of like the differences and as a resolution, and Todd, you can help me out here if I'm misspeaking here. If it were passed as a resolution, then we could pull appropriate pieces from it when an issue would arise. Right, kind of like we're doing with the sustainability plan, like we're pulling different pieces from the sustainability plan. Is that how I
Yeah,
was?
because if it's an ordinance, then only the council can do that.
Okay,
by voting.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like I'm still unsure of which is the best route.
Were there also implications as to the permanence? If there were a change in the council and mayor in terms of,
I think it's a great point.
Mhm.
Mayor Arnold raised that, yes. So if it's an ordinance, then once it's in, it's presumably a little harder to change it. Or if it's a resolution, that's really gonna depend on sort of who's in the administration as to whether it continues to be a priority or not.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so that also feels important.
And to go along with that, which is kind of my thing that I'm gonna talk about when I get to mine, but the SSR4A. Grant application is due July 10th, so Vera and I are working on that, which is the Complete Streets grant.
Mhm.
It's a zero death type of thing where you gotta, we're trying to work towards zero deaths. Because in the last 5 years, there's been 3 deaths in Webster Groves on the roads. Not on city roads, one on Interstate 44 and a double case at Big Bend and Laclede Station, which is county. So none on municipal roads, they're all on state and county roads, but qualifies us for this grant. For having 3 deaths in the last 5 years. Because you have to have at least 1 death to qualify for the grant.
Wow.
And do we keep track of injuries?
The police, if there's a police report done, that's the way we.
And that grants due. you said when?
July 10th. And it is a royal payment.
You guys are amazing. That is a tight.
The National League of Cities been putting on a boot camp.
Mhm.
It's an 8-module boot camp. We've gone through 6.
Wow.
And it's, there was a coaching session today. I don't know. I sat in on it and there was like 12 people on it, but I was like, oh my God, this is so confusing.
Oh.
I'm not sure if they know what they're doing
I
yet,
don't think they do.
because, I mean, we're in module 6 and they're changing it from action plan to
they
planning and
change-
development.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, planning
Planning
demonstration.
demonstration, thank you.
Where you can get the grant to set up demonstration. Things on how you're going to. Get towards the 0 deaths by putting up demonstration things, like temporary bike paths, temporary
Sure.
Marketing.
traffic markings in intersection,
Like traffic calming and such.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And so you can do temporary, as part of your grant, temporary demonstration projects. And you collect data from that, so that then you can do an implementation later down the road. There'll be a second round of implementation grants.
It's almost like a prototype.
Right.
So this is a little bit of a tangent, but when you brought up the deaths, I started thinking about injuries and Paul, is there a sense that there's any sort of major resistance to this that we need to overcome or?
honestly, I don't know if I'm the right person for that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Jamie, do you have a sense?
Yeah, I. Until we have kind of a better understanding of what staff, once they look at this, what they say,
Mhm.
I don't see where resistance would come in, like
Okay.
with safer streets for everyone, yes,
Mhm.
please. When we make streets safer, it's already proven that we all know this, that bikes and people are more willing to head out and about, which is our goal with this as, and also 0 deaths, of course.
But yeah, so the reason I bring it up is obviously the staff concerns are gonna be completely unrelated to this probably, but I'm just wondering, like, in the community, if, there are people who ultimately aren't excited about this, emphasizing that the reduction of deaths and injuries would be, it would be useful information to have. That it's not just, oh, we want to give over the streets to the cyclists, right? That, you know, this is, there are people actually dying and getting hurt right now. People, you know, people, like I had an advisee at Webster University, and this was, you know, I think, I don't know who owns that garden back there behind campus, you know, Garden Avenue. In
This is
between,
State Street.
yeah, well, there's a like, there's one of those weird little lights. It's like, stop if someone is crossing,
Yes.
you know? And my,
That's an education thing. People don't understand what those mean.
Yeah.
well, my,
I almost got killed on Rock Hill. When we just installed it,
yeah,
we were gonna do our final walkthrough with the state on the project. And I pushed the button, the lights started flashing, so I stepped off the curb and this lady come flying through and I'm like, really, lady, did you not see the yellow flashing lights?
Right.
well, my student did get hit and was pretty seriously injured and had to go through rehab.
That's an
and
education
everything.
program. People do not
Yeah.
understand what that means.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a pretty flashing light. No,
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah, so just a thought, I guess it's more for down the road.
Yeah.
Maybe that it might be useful to collect those statistics about how many injuries, traffic related injuries. You know, with pedestrians or cyclists or
Yeah.
whatever that we have.
Yeah, and I wonder if would that sort of data point be necessary for grants?
No, that's, this one
Only
only,
deaths.
only on zero death.
Okay, okay, well, I agree with you that would be helpful info.
The only other obvious one is that to the extent that it is sort of diverting funds from other priorities,
Of
then
course.
people will.
That's a good point too.
Yeah. Okay, so if we are comfortable with the language, yes.
One, they would call this a highly Senate wordsmithing. So on page, this is so tiny, but it's, well, pages are numbered.
Can't turn it off.
That's a good
You
point.
got
I
it.
should put numbers on.
Page 3. So there's a bullet point list, and I think you want the second bullet point to be increasing and improving, not increase and improve. Just because they're all like, they're all nouns, and even the fourth, page 3. Even the fourth bullet point is creating, you know, so just a little, you know, doesn't affect the meaning at all. It's just a little. No, this is the, I don't know what we're calling this, the ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great,
Is that the?
we don't really know what we're calling it yet either.
It's a complete streets thing.
The complete street thing is what we started calling it at our last meeting.
It's just for parallel structure, it's just a little.
Yep, I appreciate that. And I'll put page numbers on it. too.
English professor.
Yeah, it's an English.
Thank you, English professor. That's great, thanks, Scott. All right, if we are comfortable with this language, then the subcommittee will push this. I'll let the traffic folks know, and then we'll come together and organize something, hopefully by the end of the week, to hand over to Dr. Peoples.
Great,
Everybody cool, comfy? Groovy.
thank you.
Yes, thank you, and thanks again to my hat to Paul who rocked that. Okay, the speaker series with the green space folks. That is coming together. We don't have solid dates quite yet, but
I was to check on a room, wasn't I?
we still have time, don't
Okay,
worry, we
perfect.
haven't set
You missed
anything
it,
yet.
Carl.
This is the Green Space Advisory Commission, yeah, I'm gonna call this really quick. So for our, for the series, and I know we talked about this at our last meeting, we have since reached out to Mr. Hayes, the sustainability teacher at Hickson, and he agreed to do it. We're gonna talk to him about which dates work best. I had reached out to Jean Ponzi. She agreed to either talk about plastic pollution or mosquitoes. And I just heard her on St. Louis on the Air. She was on with a SLU professor talking about this new mosquito tracking
Yeah,
citizen
she's big on that right now.
science app. Yeah. Oh, because you were in a meeting with her on Friday, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it would be kind of cool to talk to her about, have her come back, because we did have, for historical purposes, in 2019, we had her come out with a county vector gentleman whose name I can't remember right now. at Maypop, we had an event outside. It was a lot of fun. And she talked about mosquitoes then, but I think this will be a little bit of a different talk. So is anybody opposed to mosquito talk?
School, what's your name?
Jean Ponzi,
Does she?
P-O-N-Z.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm attracted to that.
Some-
Oh, like the hummingbirds, there's a hummingbird.
It's like an.
Is there?
Yeah, yeah.
It was really helpful.
She's amazing.
great.
Yeah, she's amazing. John?
Is the focus? Would we ask her to focus on why fogging is bad for human health,
Yes.
or would that not be?
Well, that would be part of it. And help me understand this because I was doing a tiny bit, like skim the surface of research. And on the county's website, it says they don't fog anymore. Is that accurate information?
You were on my street last year. I don't know, maybe it was
I think
a
they have
rogue
stopped.
bit of.
I think they have stopped.
So,
They're just doing the insecticide.
so, yes, so when they would fog is when, so they had like certain traps in various areas of the county, and if they saw if there was evidence of mosquitoes that were the disease carrier, because not all of them carry the disease, if there were evidence of that mosquito, then they would fog. And if there was no evidence in those traps, then they would just leave things alone. That was my understanding based on the very minimal research I did.
Because the fogging only gets what's in the air.
Yes, it's an adulticide. It doesn't get the eggs in the water.
The insecticide is what gets the eggs, yeah. So they go around, they drop the pebble, a little pebble.
The dumps.
pebble, whatever they are in the
Mhm,
water,
mhm.
receiving water.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw them, I was out walking my dogs and it was at night and they were quiet, fast. It was like they definitely didn't want anybody to notice. You know what I mean? Yeah,
When I was growing up in the city of Belleville would spray, we'd run behind the truck.
That's what you're. I got to bring up the case of trucks all summer long.
well, you know, a lot of times.
That's what's wrong with me.
What? Ask what time period that was?
70s and 80s.
Oh, interesting, because I always tell my students Rachel Carson changed all that, but her Silent Spring came out before that. I guess maybe you guys hadn't read it.
Well, let's talk about the St. Louis area and how quick we are to respond
Yeah.
to science.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Jean and I'm thinking, so we're gonna take the month of July off. Because I think all of Webster pretty much does, and if you guys want to push back on me on that, that's totally fine, but
Speaker series?
For the
or
speaker
the
series,
commission,
because-
or-
yes, both. We
Okay.
take July off.
Okay,
City council takes the month off.
Yeah. The eco ed has been populated by green space until June. We are gonna add a speaker in June for something separate, which I'll get to in a minute. And then we're gonna take July off, and then it'll be August, September, October, November. I'm not sure we'll do it December. I'm not sure that folks have bandwidth for, sustainability, but we'll see.
We could do a holiday sustainability thing.
We definitely could.
I don't know what it would be, but
Yeah.
surely there's something.
Yes.
But for
Don't
sure,
pour
there's.
your grease
speakers.
down the drain.
Don't put your grease down the drain, right, exactly. So there's, so we have Mr. Hayes from Hickson, we have Jean for mosquitoes. We have Elizabeth's professor, what is his name? Maybe,
He
yeah,
didn't respond back to us again, yeah.
no, but he sounds very interested and he was gonna look at the dates.
I'll follow up.
Okay,
And what's the
Professor
topic?
talking about what?
His Professor Montfield, I think is how you say his name. It's only online, so it's my best guess. But he is a ecologist at WashU, and he teaches in the sustainability program, and he was going to talk on the intersection of health and climate change.
It's not Mark Van Tufel, is it?
That's the
That's
one.
it.
Do you know him?
Never heard of him.
They are like-
Yeah, way better than I do. Yeah,
I put Monfield.
MANTEUFFEL.
yeah.
Oh, I was way off.
yeah, thank you, John.
I can see that you can.
Yeah, and he said it once out loud, he said it
Yeah,
once out loud, but I can't remember that one actually.
And then I am going to reach out to Jenny Went, who used to work, is it Public Works at U
George
City?
City, yeah.
Yeah, so she used to work there and
Independent.
now she works for,
Oh, did she move again?
yeah, she works for, I can't remember the Mississippi Coalition that she works for now and is,
I didn't know that.
yeah, and she
I
is.
just saw her at APWA last month. too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, unless
Well,
she went
talk to you
back, which I
next
doubt. I don't think it's MRTCI, Mississippi Rivers Towns. Anyway, I'm gonna reach out to her to see if she would like to do a point source pollution discussion with like, with focusing on single use and that sort of thing. And I know that we had talked about like, ESG, am I getting that right, that acronym? Okay, investing and that sort of thing, and I really like those ideas. I don't know. I've been trying to wrap my brain around that without it being like too salesy, like who would we have come and talk?
Ed Ross here,
Who's that?
he runs the investment program in clean energy for, he used to be at US Bank.
Okay,
And US Bank in St. Louis is the biggest lender to clean energy in the whole United States of America. New York Bank and California Bank,
yeah,
and Ed was there for many years. He's just jumped over to another firm. His name I forget, but he lives in the second CD, so he doesn't live too far away from here, second congressional district. I think he might go further west. Smart dude.
okay,
and-
John. Yeah, sorry.
But you first.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, let's connect on that and see what we think that could look like.
You know that his thing wouldn't be necessarily ESG from investor viewpoint. He's somebody who does the big financing. If somebody's gonna build a wind farm, he comes up with
Okay,
that kind of stuff. It's not like Joe Blow with their IRA's got a grant to spend. or
Right,
something.
right, okay. All right, well, let's connect on that and see.
And I have two other ideas.
Yeah. Please.
It seems to me that having a speaker on residential solar would be helpful, because that's something people could actually do.
Definitely.
And
Do you know
say-
someone?
I was thinking that going to the Grow Solar program.
I would say on that emphasis is, Grow Solar is supposed to start back up this year.
Yeah.
Have we heard anything from them? We have.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
in, and we're gonna get to that in new business, if that's okay.
Perfect.
'Cause
Yep.
We are definitely going to do that.
And then this other, second idea is somebody to talk ins and outs of electric vehicle charging
Yeah,
at the residential level, because my understanding is the Inflation Reduction Act has $1,000 subsidy. If you're putting an EV charging station in your residence,
Mhm.
you can get $1,000 back from feds.
Mhm.
And that's just, I'm not sure I read that right, and I'm not sure when it starts, I have no details, but somebody's gonna know those details. And it seems to me that there's gonna be people who are thinking, well, should I go electric? What does it cost to put in a charging thing? How much? Do I have to upgrade my-
Right.
For residential, it's like $1,800.
So $1,000 would go over halfway there.
Yeah. I did talk to, this topic did come up about how to help folks understand what's available to them from Inflation Reduction Act, which I think is like a really important tool and also would be a great service to our residents. We've talked about this for ages, you guys. Emily Andrews with USGBC. She and I were chatting about that. She was, because I was asking her, like, who do you think? She was like, I don't know, maybe me. So I'll circle back with her to see if that's something that she would consider.
I think, let me just say for that, I think if we do have it, whether or not we have it at the talk, it would be nice to have a more kind of permanent resource for people, who can't come to the talk. Like, I don't know, I mean, something on our website, whether it's a video of the talk or handout.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah,
I think, yeah, both all,
yeah,
to help folks understand that we could be a resource for them to tap into
Yeah.
these benefits. If folks are like, where do I even begin? Like, we could just create like a how-to. Yeah, I really like that idea.
Have we gotten anywhere on the speakers, on being able to record the speaker series?
So that is where I think like moving the series out of the library and into another venue would be helpful. So that we could, folks could zoom in
And then we
and
could
also have
record
those
on Zoom.
recordings. Yeah, so. Yes,
The Democratic Club meets at the library and we've got, it's recorded and people can
really?
be at home and on Zoom.
Okay,
Shirley Wolverson is the one who's doing the tech on it.
I'm
Democrats.
part of
The-
something
yeah,
at
the
the
Jefferson
library
Township
that use Zoom.
okay,
Yeah, so you
Okay.
can, you click, I'm gonna either come in person or come in Zoom. If you come in Zoom, then you just sit at home. and watch
Okay.
it. She-
all right.
It seems
that's-
pretty. I mean, I'm not a tech guy. but it
Yeah,
didn't seem that
Seem
hard.
pretty straightforward. Okay, okay,
And Shirley would know, and she's great about it.
okay. All right, then I'm gonna put that on our to-do list as well to make sure.
Shirley Wolverson, WOLVERSON. Lives in Webster.
So that we can have that, you know, that feature for our talks.
Is it been big enough for the speakers?
We just had SRO for one of the speakers, right before the like, maybe it was March. Talking about, I think it was how to kill your lawn. Folks were into it, so it was like 80 plus folks there. Mhm.
Boy, and that, the meeting,
That's tight room, yeah,
gee.
I know, it was exciting.
So I had talked about maybe trying to get a space at the university, which we would, just depending on what else is happening. There's a couple good options.
Yeah, okay, all right, so we have options, we'll figure, we'll get this scheduled with the various speakers and events, start to come up with little blurbs to share with WKT and also city, so that we can start to share that information, and then we'll also nail down locations.
And we have dates already.
We are trying to keep it consistent with Green Space, which is like the third Thursday of each month, which like this week.
And
they
is
have
that
one.
7:30?
7.
7, okay.
Mhm. And we can tweak the time if
Okay.
we all prefer.
Okay.
7:30, whatever, and the talks are about an hour.
And that's for,
That is our Eco Ed speaker
at
series.
7:30s.
7, right now they're at 7, so we can decide if we want to adjust that.
Another topic, just
Yes.
is kind of an evergreen. It's not super newsy or anything, is I think it'd be useful to do a session on water quality and why all the stuff you spray in your yard ends up in the creeks.
Yeah,
I just don't think people connect the dots on that stuff.
I agree with you, Jeff, and I do wonder the series that is going on. And I don't know where to find it while I'm talking to you guys at the same time. The series that is happening on Thursday, I think either this month or it's the next month, is about water quality,
Okay.
and they're meeting.
Oh, it's Danelle Heck talking
Yeah.
about Deer Creek.
Who used to be a
Okay,
commission
yeah.
member? Is that this month's? I think it is.
I can tell you.
You said third Thursday?
Yeah,
Everything's on the third.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It happens like that sometimes.
It
right?
does.
Oh, Danelle's, it's this Thursday, the 20th.
Yeah.
She's speaking.
And is that at the library? Do you have that in your notes?
It's at the library. at 7.
I've sent you guys a couple of emails about important dates. I will resend that so that it's current in your inbox. I hope I'm not going to spam yet. That's how often I email y'all. Just so that we can make sure that we're, in attendance for some of these things, but that water quality one is super important. So let's see how these two go and then see if that's something we want to revisit even for next year, because I imagine we'll continue this week. Okay. Any other questions or comments about speaker series right now?
Did you say fourth Thursday or last Thursday?
For this is, they've tried to stick to the third Thursday.
Third. Thursday.
Yes.
It says stormwater management.
That we'll get to.
Okay, that was under speaker.
Yeah. Probably, yeah. Yes. Okay, Amna and I don't have, the next item in old business, Amna and I don't have much to update for the green dining effort. It's been a fast 3 weeks since our last meeting, and so, and Amna's super That's why she's not here tonight. She's super involved with her mosque and composting efforts and Earth Day efforts. And these are her high holidays right now. And so she wasn't able to make it. And so she and I are gonna meet next week to talk through that program and start to get more things ironed out with that programming. But I think I've updated you all that the Business Development Commission is partnering with us on that. So we're hoping that with some of their money and our money, we'll be able to offer some small grants to our restaurants. And we are going to engage with them. I think on May 17th, we're gonna have a rep from the GDA come and they're having like a business, the BDC is having like an outreach morning. And so we're really hoping to get more restaurants get their ear, because it's really hard to get those folks to, they're busy. So to go where to get them to chat with us about this. So that's the update there. Wow, update, Paul.
Yeah, so WOW Webster on Wheels is returning this year again. So on the first Sunday in May, which is May 7th this year. The event officially starts at 1:30 p.m. It's on the Bristol Blacktop. The ride will start at a little before 3 o'clock. And the event kind of wraps up by 4:35, something like that. Todd, we've already talked about kind of what the city will just help with
Jugs again.
jugs, and I think if they need cones, right? I think Ron Cliff is gonna reach out to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
already.
We gave them some cones last year around me, but yeah, however many they need, we got a bunch.
So there's gonna be, we're trying to make the event as sustainable as possible, so no plastics, no throwaway foods, water bottles, packaging, anything like that. And I will be there, sort of, we're gonna start set up about 12:30. And then it closes down, I think by about 4:30. I'll be there, I think, the whole time. But if anyone would like to, we will have a table like we did last year. If anyone would like to volunteer, that would be fantastic. Just whatever you can do.
I'm gonna be in Vermont. Sorry.
Is that something that high schoolers can volunteer at too? Cause I'm part of our student council and we like send out a lot of like volunteer opportunities to our like members. So if like that's something high schoolers could volunteer, I could get people to do that probably.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
It's geared towards young families, so a lot of little kids there with bikes.
So I'm curious. Bring out your baby card.
Right?
Well, along those lines, do we have a flyer or something yet? Because I actually do know other people, like other faculty and maybe students at the university who might like to, if only participate, but maybe volunteer.
So Dave Buck is the guy that organizes it, and there have been a couple of, yeah, Dave would be happy to talk to you.
They
about
would be
it.
happy to have more volunteers, yeah.
But there are a couple, he puts out, I think he's done 2 kind of reminders, like 1-page things which have all the details on them. There'll be another one going out either later this week or at the beginning of next week.
And what, how do they go out? Like what's?
So they're distributed on the city
Email the city
page.
website.
Okay.
I don't know if she got, I haven't seen it in the Friday page.
Okay. So it's not, I think there'll be one this Friday then, if there hasn't been one on the Friday page yet.
Okay.
And then we are actually, we're gonna do sort of a little sustainability commission, why the event's sustainable, why biking is a good idea, something simple. We'll go out sort of under the WOW branding next week, maybe, which I'm working with Dave on.
Okay.
So yeah, just anyone who, it's a great event, there's live music, there's Kona Ice. There's this group of riders, stunt riders called the Sprockets that come after the main ride. And the ride itself is like a 5-mile loop. There's a police officer that leads it. There's typically a couple hundred, sometimes more. So it's a big group of riders, kids, all abilities welcome. And this year we tried to make it clear that people on e-bikes are welcome as well.
Okay.
There could, or do you guys have like a QR code like you did on the No Movember? Where I know people, I've seen people walk by my house and scan it, or like if people, you know.
Does he have anything like that on his signs? His yard signs?
I don't think so. But just.
That's
Dave's
just.
not that tech savvy.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got the flyers on Facebook and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Paul, I'm not there.
Would it be okay, Jamie, if I circulate to this group, like a sign up sheet? And then also Dave's flyer, just so everyone
Yes.
has that information.
Yeah, if you want to sign up for an hour or 2-hour shift, I was gonna yes, follow up with that, like if you could commit to an hour or 2 hours, that'd be great. I got Bob, again, this is a ball of bags that is representative of the number of plastic bags that folks use in a year. And that is from the county, and the wheel of recycling I got again. So that's a fun engagement piece. And so we'll be tabling with a tent. We'll have Bob and the wheel. We'll have our bags to hand out still. Yes, I know the bags. And so, and then we'll have, Paul kind of be our rep and with a little, are you gonna say a couple of remarks?
Dave wants someone to say something, so, yeah.
So that's May 7th.
May 7th, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Paul, for that. Any other questions, comments about WOW?
Let me just say, there's not a whole lot on the city calendar. I mean, it's just that,
It's on the city
recognition for it?
page.
yeah.
I'll check in with Dave on that, because he's usually very.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, it's maybe all of that is
the necessary
necessary,
detail,
but,
yeah,
but if,
I'm surprised Jenny didn't put his flyer out on.
Yeah,
on the
maybe I
social.
just haven't found it.
I haven't been. Yeah, I'll check. We can check with Jenny.
It
too,
doesn't say anything about the sprockets.
for example.
Jenny's probably think about that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's all in his little
it's in
flyer.
his flyer, yeah.
All right, so Paul, you're gonna, and will you circulate the flyer as
Yeah.
well, so that if folks want to push that out to their socials or share it with anybody specific. Coolness, okay. We're gonna move on to new business now, I had a meeting with Dr. Peoples and Mayor Arnold last week about.
Pam was in it.
And yes, and sorry, Pam, yes, thank you. Which I just looked up at her name and then forgot to say her name. Hi Pam. And we worked through trying to give some dollar amounts and line to our priorities of for Forever Webster Growth, which is our sustainability plan. And that was a tricky endeavor. That said, we do have some important decisions to make as far as so from the American Rescue Plan funds, ARPA funds, council last year allocated $100,000 for our commission to ask to spend money on for sustainability efforts. Does that make sense what I just said? Okay, so we have been building some programs in order to spend that money. One of the things that we've been looking at is the intern for I forgot to mention that earlier, for benchmarking.
Greenhouse gas.
The greenhouse gas emissions, yes. And I'm hopeful that will proceed. So that's about $5,200.
$5,200.
Yes, for an intern to
5200.
5,000.
So you were thinking 50 TO.
Yeah.
Come on, Jenny. Come on.
Okay, 52.
Yes.
Yes, $5,200. Yeah.
24 years of teaching, I can often pinpoint where the misunderstandings come.
Thank you. And so we, Pam and Jeff, were helpful, very helpful in this. Pam was incredibly helpful in helping to kind of narrow down what exactly we want to try to accomplish over the next 3 years, because the ARPA funds have to be spent have to be allocated by 4-year-25, right?
December 31st, 2025.
Yeah. And so we have all sorts of ideas. The green dining effort is one of the ones that would be, I would like to see a lot of you know, of the funds put into that effort, because I feel like this is an opportunity that isn't gonna come along again. This is also a program that could really change the amount, you know, make an impact in our region. With changing the amount of food waste that is sent to a landfill, and also might change our habits, you know, as diners and residents in the city. So I feel like it's an important piece. Some of the things that we are prioritizing, some of them, you know, we don't know what the real costs are, and some of them, quite honestly, will be some grant funded. You know, I know that there's a city piece, like matching piece, that has to go along with a lot of grants. It's hard for us right now to guesstimate what that kind of dollar amount would be. Now, John.
I hate to keep interrupting you, but for clarification, I was reading something online, some more Webster City Council stuff, I think, about the ARPA money.
Mhm.
And what I said there was, and I think what you're talking about here is $100,000 is allocated for sustainability initiatives.
Mhm.
There's also 200,000 allocated for solar roof panels.
That is for city facilities, am I right?
That's not happening.
What?
It's not happening. Our roofs are too small.
That's what happened to my house.
The roof's too small to put them on there, is that it would be such a small panel, you wouldn't get anything out of it.
Can they put them out on the, just in the field?
Ground.
What field?
I don't.
Next to, how about
The
that?
soccer field is being used, you can't do that.
How
We don't
about,
have any, city doesn't have any fields.
We could do Jeff's idea, we just do
We
the,
have, we have them all over our flat roof at our.
yeah, the parking canopy. Solar parking
right
panel.
by-
We're working on, I am working on getting solar panels on the community center.
Oh.
It's $2 million.
Yeah.
So ARPA funds is not gonna cover it,
Mhm.
because it's only got 1.2 something left.
so
And we said
the,
that new fire station that roof can't have solar panels, is that right?
It's a metal roof, it probably could, but we haven't looked at that.
Okay.
Dr.
That's
Peoples
not
wanted me
me.
to look at pavilions and parks, but most of the pavilions are under shade,
Oh,
so
wow.
it's not gonna work. She goes, well, we can move the pavilions. I said, well, nobody's gonna use them because they're out in the sun.
Yeah.
Right.
And the solar
What
people
about
said,
bathrooms?
the solar
What about-
people said you don't want to put them in parks because you're not gonna get a return on investment because you can't sell it to anyone, you won't make any money.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You need to have it where something where you're gonna be able to use it immediately on your building.
What about parking lots?
Well, we looked at that. We looked at the lot over here, but we don't own it. We're gonna do a covered parking lot over here, but that's owned by the Masons, so
Yeah.
they would not allow us to do that.
I've seen, I don't want to get too distracted, but I've seen like the Cincinnati Zoo. Most of their parking is like basically solar panels,
Yeah.
covers all of,
Yeah.
some shades of parking, which is
Oh, yeah,
fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah, we looked at that at the rec center
Is
too.
the rec center cool?
Okay.
how about the,
And we're up to $3 million.
Right.
could you do the rec center parking lot? And you
That's
could
what
scale
we're
it.
just talking.
Oh,
Yeah. I was
So it
gonna
adds
say,
it
yeah.
up to $3 million for the rec center. And
Well,
the
but if
incentive,
you took out the 2 million, because you, the roof and just did the,
it'd be $1 million. And the incentives for the $2 million are just under 900,000. And it's a 30-year life cycle, and it's a 20-year to pay back. So it's like, it's not even worth it. It's 20 years, you're paying it off, and in the last 10 years, you're finally making money on it. So it's like, it's not even worth it.
but you're paying. I'm not following.
It's a 30-year life cycle on the panels. You gotta replace them every 30
Like the
years.
lifespan of the panel.
It takes 20 years for you to make your money back that you put into it up front.
Because the
The break even point
cost
is
of
20
the
years.
panels versus how much electricity you get that.
20 years before you start coming ahead.
So you have return on investment.
Is that specific to parking lot versus rooftop?
Both. That was both. That was everything now, rec center. And then they're looking at redoing the pool, and they were looking at adding solar panels to all the pool stuff too. The cabanas. all kinds of things.
What-
And that's still on the table.
It's still on the table.
With that project.
Yeah.
Within that project.
That project hasn't even been designed yet. so-
But that probably wouldn't have it being spent by December.
No, that wouldn't be ARPA funds. That would be city fund. Or part of the pool bond issue.
So what are you gonna do with the 200 grand? For solar panels?
It's gotta be spent somewhere else.
What about at schools? Does Hickson have solar panels? I don't
Those
know.
buildings aren't owned by the city there, so they fall under the
School
school
district would have to
district.
pay that.
So we can ask the school that, though, we can ask the board that.
I think that the new fire station.
School board,
because
why
it-
they're spending millions of dollars on the football field, but not the parking lot.
Right.
Yes, the parking lot.
We get so many complaints about that parking lot. It's not a city parking lot. I'm sorry. Call the school district.
Or don't drive.
It's like a minefield down
Right,
there.
no.
Right, yeah.
Right.
We had safer streets, we could.
There you go.
It's connected, imagine.
It is, it's all connected.
Okay, so,
I could,
yeah,
so there was that, there's also 140K in there for EV charging in the ARPA.
That's
money.
already spent.
It's already spent.
Yeah, well, only spent half of it. It was 65,000 for the chargers at City Hall.
What do you
And
do
then
with the other half?
it goes back into the fund to be spent on something else.
Are we gonna put chargers at the rec center?
I'm
soon?
working on that, and there's another grant that's available that has to be turned in by May 30th, but you have to have a minimum of 500,000. So I'm going to pull everything together and do a big grant for 500,000.
For charging stations.
Yes. At the
Todd-
Rec center, at the rest of the City Hall Police Department ones, the parking garage, Alma parking lot, the service center.
okay,
So
Is
all
it-
those chargers are gonna be about 300,000, then the electricity to get them all connected is gonna be another $200,000 to make the 500,000. That's the
okay,
minimum for the grant.
so,
It's an 80-20. So yeah, so the city has to pay 500,000 and get 400 of it back. Yeah.
And then you
300.
use can you use the ARPA money for that 100K the city would have to pay for the, out of the 500,000?
I'm not sure about that. Because there are restrictions on that money, on what you can spend it on. So I'm not sure you can use it as your match on the grant funds.
what's your timeline for pulling that EV plan together?
Well, it's due, the application is due May 30th, so I
Okay,
gotta get it together by then.
okay,
Submit it.
all right, if the commission can be of any service as far as,
Not on that one, but on the complete streets one, that's what I've got on my.
okay, okay. All right, just want to make sure that you know that we'll help you wherever we can,
You don't want help with like a federal grant application, trust me.
No, you already convinced.
They
me
are
that I
not,
don't
they are
like
not
it.
fun. They are not fun. The questions they ask you is like, really? Really? No wonder we waste so much taxpayer money.
all right,
Oh, here's one other
yeah,
thing we talked about a little bit last meeting. Was an urban tree canopy survey.
mhm.
Is it, do you know how to, yeah?
We already did one.
You did one?
Yep.
But that was just for the city
2019.
property, right?
All in the right of way, yep, all street trees.
But not,
And there's one in the parks that was done years ago,
okay,
but not residential.
Not
No, we
resident.
don't go on private property. So, residents have to do that themselves.
well, you wouldn't do a tree canopy survey with like GIS and satellite?
I don't know.
John, there is, Collinsville just did that. Collinsville, the city of Collinsville, and, I think it was last year. We could connect with them. Derek Jackson, he's amazing. He's the deputy, city manager there.
He was at the meeting Friday.
Yeah, I figured he would be. And so we could talk to him about what that looks like, what their process was, and, see if that's something that we might want to consider for next year.
Yeah, there's a lot of data on it, on the impact of human health.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah,
On the tree
big
canopy,
time.
and I think that would be interesting to see
Yeah.
what Webster looks like.
On the other hand, with all these windstorms, I mean, you know, I've lost 2 cars to a significant
Wow.
rain in my
We
property.
had 2 trees down in the streets over the weekend,
Mhm,
one Saturday and one Sunday.
I believe it.
So it's, I mean.
Yeah.
I love trees. That's why that tree is still sitting.
After 2 cars being damaged.
No, destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we get
Okay.
insurance for, right?
I'm gonna pull us back to this prioritization conversation because it's really important that we have this discussion and we are already at 5. So one of the issues that the subcommittee with the Green Space Advisory Commission our subcommittee brought forth was a stormwater management plan, especially in light of the excessive flooding at the end of last summer. Lo and behold, the city has a plan. It's from 2002 though.
Really?
And it
How did you
needs
find
to
it?
be updated. Our mayor.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
You did?
I've been using it for the last 8 years.
Let the record be corrected. Todd. Thank you,
Yes, when you
Todd.
guys brought that up, so we already have one.
Yeah, okay. Thank you,
Wow.
And
Todd.
then you guys said, well, we need that, and I said, it's from 2002, and you said, well, we need to update it.
Yes.
So I went out for an RFQ.
Yes, and so Todd, with that process, we landed on Intuition and Logic.
Yes.
And they have come back to us with an estimate for updating our plan. Drum roll for the figure.
$151,260.
Sounds like a deal.
It's a lot of money.
No, I think
And this
this
goes
goes to.
to,
This goes to the stormwater management plan. So we have $95,000.
Who's we?
Well, sustainability to spend on sustainability initiatives from those ARPA funds. We don't have it. Pam's probably like, Jerry,
100 minus the 5 for the intern.
Yeah.
correct,
Got it.
yes. We would ask council for everything that we're going to do. So,
But then there's all that extra money from not doing the solar panels, right?
well, I mean, just like your own budget at home, you're like, oh, well, we didn't spend any money here, let's go spend it here. So I'm sure that Dr. Peoples and all the folks here are like, where else can we spend that money? It's not just gonna languish. So my question for you all in this discussion that we need to have is, do we say that like all of our funds go toward the stormwater management plan? And then the city tries to figure out what, how to make up the difference? Do we want to say, well, we do want to focus on some of these other efforts and we really don't have like, we have to still prioritize some things for next year, or the things that we prioritized for this year. We haven't, some of these don't have figures yet because we haven't gotten to that point. So I am wondering what your thoughts are here. Spend it all on stormwater management and then everything else just kind of lands without funding and it's just gonna be our elbow grease that's gonna get things
How
going.
much of the 2008 plan has yet to be implemented? Because water, water flows downhill, it follows gravity, a lot of it's the same,
Stormwater plan,
yeah,
2002.
2002. How much is still unimplemented? Because, a
Quite a
lot
bit.
of Webster hasn't changed,
Why is it-
so.
In the 8 years I've been here, I think I've done 5 projects off of it,
And how many are on there?
40 something.
So in my mind, a lot of those projects are probably still the same. Maybe they flood slightly more, but they're probably still pretty similar to what our update is gonna be. I personally would rather see that money spent at implementing something than on having a consulting group say, yeah, you still have a lot of water that's coming to this bottom gravity where you haven't
Yeah,
come in
that's-
before.
That's a really good, I agree with that.
Mike's giving you a thumbs up.
Yeah. Todd, I have a question regarding that.
Yes.
So my interest or what piques my interest with having an updated plan is it would have updated data as far as where, 20 years ago, climate change wasn't, but our carbon emissions were
As
less.
strong as it is. now.
Yeah, so we have way more parts per million now,
Right.
so. Like, do they take into consideration and then adjust the size of the project? Or would
Yes.
that be done anyway? Once you would say, oh, we're gonna work on this
Well, yeah,
project
the
this
project
year.
needs to be implemented, yeah.
And then reassess?
And then the costs are 2002 costs, so.
Right,
I kind of then, wait a minute, it was gonna cost this in 2002, it's gonna cost this in 2023.
yeah. So not only, I mean, obviously the cost would change, but the amount of water consideration
Correct.
would change.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen it the last couple of years.
So do you think we need a plan then to be updated?
So what all are they proposing to do for this $150,000?
They're going to update what we have in our plan, and they're going to add to it, they're going to research with residents, they're gonna send out a questionnaire. So that people can say, oh yeah, I'm having problems in my backyard that we didn't know about. So there'll be things that are coming in that nobody knew about because nobody's complaining about it or bringing it up to anybody.
So they're the only firm we got an estimate from.
I sent it out to 6 companies and I only got 2 back.
What was the other one?
HR Green
Was it a similar amount?
was, they don't give you a price when you get a request for qualifications. For
Mm.
engineering, you can't ask for proposals. for
I
money.
see.
You have to do it based on their qualifications.
Okay.
So myself, Jamie, Carrie Coyne from the Green Space Commission, and then Gregory Donovan, who's our finance guy. We all reviewed the 2 proposals and we were unanimous that Intuition and Logic was better of the 2. And then I reached out to Intuition last year and said, okay, so this is what we want. They said, okay, we'll put it together, a cost estimate, hours and all that.
I just wonder if there's some lower cost version of updating that we can.
Dr. Peoples was under the impression it was gonna cost us 400,000, so she was happy when it came. I didn't want to deal.
One question I would have, and we can't answer that ourselves, is there a real initiative or interest by the council in doing the projects? Because there's no sense in spending all this money if we're gonna stick a plan on the shelf. And not implement.
And is there funding to
Funding,
implement
right.
the projects, even if they want to?
Right.
I agree with that. It seems to me that
There's
we've
no
got,
grant funding for stormwater projects that I'm aware of.
yeah, it seems to me. we-
Even in the infrastructure law.
Stormwater related.
Pam, you wanna weigh in?
Yeah, hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
I'm about to board a plane, so I will hop off when that time comes, but given the flooding that we had last year and the FEMA and SEMA that we've applied, assistance that we've applied for, and knowing that those flood maps have changed over the years, I know council is motivated to learn about this. And in our subcommittee with Green Space, that was the first thing that popped up in that subcommittee was how do we help manage stormwater if we don't have any information or data that's updated? So that was the motivation at the beginning. I don't know that you all have to say you want to spend all of your 100,000 or all of the 90,000 that's left. You could say we will chip in a certain amount and see where Green Space is. Not that they have the money, but see where they land as far as, is it a priority for them as well? It was 6 months ago, and is it still with them? So we were trying to hear from you all and then go to Green Space and hear from them.
Doesn't the FEMA and SEMA have, isn't that the data?
No, that's assistance that we've applied for the homes that were flooded in August.
Gotcha.
So Pam, follow-up question from John Hickey. It seems to me that I still like the idea of implementing rather than studying, and we've got 6 empty, I think, condemned houses there by Deer Creek Park. And we don't need another study to know Deer Creek Park's gonna flood again and again and again. Do we use this money to, my understanding is the city does not have the money to buy those houses because of limits on FEMA funding and all that. But it seems to me the first thing we need to do is buy those houses, add the green space to the Deer Creek Park. And we know then we're actually doing something positive in terms of stormwater management. We're creating more space for water. Seems to me that
That's,
with that,
not everyone is on board with that idea.
And also $90,000 isn't, or excuse me.
Yeah.
Is not gonna buy that many houses.
you know, but one house, I'd rather have that than another study on the shelf that's like not doing it.
But ultimately, I think it's not our decision as to whether or not the study is done, right? That's city council's
No,
decision.
this is our money.
Right, well, it's not our money.
Contribute
It-
toward
it's-
that.
It's up to us to request the use of the money, right?
Yes.
It's not our money.
Yes.
And so, and especially since we can't afford it anyway, what I'm hearing from Pam is maybe we could say, we're willing to kick in this much we think it would be appropriate to kick in this much of this $90,000 that we've been asked to make suggestions
Mhm.
for. And then we'd like to keep the rest of it for these other things.
Mhm.
Which in some ways. You know, if we think the study is worth doing at all, maybe we say, okay, we're willing to kick in. Not kick in, because it's not our money. but-
Sure, but yeah, say, allocate, say,
Yeah, yeah.
this is what we're comfortable
Right.
putting toward this effort.
But Pam, isn't it correct that city council's gonna decide whether or not to commission this study, right? Not us.
Yes, because there's gonna be other dollars that are coming from other places.
Seems to me that what we want to do is look at a suite of options. Because again, I live close to these 6 empty houses. And to have these 6 empty houses that have been sitting empty and open since the flood. And there's no money to do anything, and then we're gonna do a study? I mean, that seems batshit crazy to me. Just
Well, everything's tied up, of course, because we're still waiting to hear back from FEMA and SEMA about and correct me if I'm wrong.
The buyouts, yeah.
The buyouts for those properties.
Didn't we already get the first thing from FEMA where they said, you will do 2 houses max or something like that?
I don't know.
No.
That's. Pam, did you hear that question? Have we heard
No,
from
I
FEMA
did
yet?
not. No,
Have we
that's
heard-
it's months away, yeah. We have heard that there's 2 recurring properties that have been, there's 2 that are likely to be purchased, and there's others that council, we all have to talk about it still. And
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to hop off. I will
All right.
catch up
safe
with you,
travels.
Jamie, tomorrow.
Yes.
Because we need to have a proposal or, idea and outline ready for tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah,
All right.
we'll connect tomorrow. Thank you, Pam.
Take care. Thanks, guys.
Safe travels.
We need to be done by 5:30 because.
Yes, traffic is right behind us, yeah. Pardon the pun.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you all is. We have a group who's like. We don't want to spend this money on another study. There's that thought. There's also a thought of saying, there's an interest in saying. We feel comfortable with this dollar amount toward the plan. And those are I don't hear anyone saying, let's give it all toward the plan. Am I summarizing this conversation accurately?
Do we have a list of what the other things are that we're thinking of spending the money on?
Yes, and that was shared by
Sorry.
Pam. That's okay. It's okay. It's a document that's gonna look like this. It's in a sheet.
Okay.
And if it wasn't, I can send it out to you all.
Yeah, no, I think I've seen that.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'll send it all to you. I'll send it to you all. And again, there's not a ton of dollars plugged in because we don't really know. That said, like the green dining effort is something that Amna and I are working on, and it's in progress right now. And I'm saying, as she and I are like doing calculations, if BBC is going in on this with us, maybe it's $30,000 of our money over the next 3 years to give restaurants a runway to be able to comfortably say they're gonna try this out. Composting and better containers, et cetera. We wanted to make sure that we were partnering with them for, a period of time, not just this one and done type of effort. So I will speak for, well, I don't wanna, what do we think?
What, could everyone maybe say where they're at, since we're only hearing from a few people?
Yeah. Anyone have anything?
You want to just go around? They want
Yeah,
to
that's
say
fine.
something,
Yes.
Just for this process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, you wanna start? Carson, do you wanna start? Do you feel?
She's not a voting-
Okay, you bet.
voting member.
I didn't wanna.
Don't put her on the spot.
Okay, John.
My thinking is, and maybe that spreadsheet answers some of these questions, but I feel like we've got a lot of ideas, but that don't have dollar amounts connected to them or arguments for or against connected to them. So I feel like you say throwing a dart at a dartboard. So what I think would be helpful is looking at these different ideas we've laid out, and then looking at the case for each one,
Mhm.
and then we could evaluate,
Mhm.
as opposed to what's popping up. And also recognizing what, Todd and the city's gonna know, where they're gonna say, oh yeah, well, we were gonna do this, but we found out that didn't work, or we're gonna do this other thing.
Yeah.
And so that then we're like, we got the information, we can make a
Mhm.
decision that's wise.
Mhm. Okay,
And that's what the council's wanting from you guys. What's your priorities?
yeah.
Sorry, I got confused. Am I commenting on the priorities or on this, the plan, the?
Yeah,
The
Stormwater plan.
money, the
Stormwater, okay.
stormwater management plan spent and how we want to spend the money that we do have priorities that we have talked about for the last year. And we are building and pushing forward with. Some of them don't have costs associated quite yet, because they're still in development. And then this came up and that this is an opportunity to say, do we spend all of it? Do we spend some of it? Do we say, we just don't want to spend our money here?
So my opinion is that we spend none of it on an updated plan. I really think that if we looked at the plan, that there are probably some big ticket items. We know where the majority of flooding is. And while you're right, Jamie, that there is probably more flooding in those areas and that there will continue to be. I think when a project is implemented, that those will be things that hopefully everyone will consider when we're implementing a plan. But I think that updating the plan will not be a good use of our dollars.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Second one.
Okay.
I would agree with the exception that, because I think part of the thing is we don't know what we're going to allocate the 100,000 to.
Mhm.
And there are some things there are priorities that don't have. They're not big ticket things, they're updating codes and things like that.
Mhm.
you only have 2 months left to the end of the fiscal year.
So look at smaller ticketed items.
You gotta spend it by June 30th or lose it.
Oh,
Wait, spend the 100K.
Yes, by June 30th.
We have to have it. We have to
Budget
have
third
it.
budget year ends June 30th, so July 1st starts a new budget year, so if council doesn't appropriate you any money for
Yes.
next year. You don't have any money next year to spend.
Yes.
you just have a plan for it. You don't have to spend
You
it.
have to have it spent by June, we have to have it under contract to be spent by June
Okay.
30th.
See, and I was under the impression that we had to spend this by 26.
Well, that's the ARP money, yes, but the council only gave you 100,000 this fiscal year to spend of that ARP money. So if you don't have it spent by June 30th, it goes back into the ARP.
And they could reallocate, like
Yes,
say, yes, we
correct.
see what you're doing here is, yeah.
They'll give you another 100,000 next year to spend.
If this were something the city really wanted to go forward with, I mean, I could go along with. Allocating a portion, not the full 95,000 remaining, but some portion of that toward that.
Mhm.
But in general, I agree that. I don't want to,
Spend all of it on the plan.
right,
No, and I agree with that as well. I guess I'm a little curious as to, like Pam seemed to be saying, there are people who want the information from this plan. So if there are people who have good reasons for wanting and needing the information, I wouldn't want to be like, no, we think that's a bad idea, you know what I mean? So I'm sort of I'm open to requesting some of this money go, but I guess I would like a better sense of who thinks they can use the information and for what purpose.
Mhm.
With what money?
Yeah, well, I mean, we know the money, right? We know how much it's gonna cost.
With what money are
We
they
know
gonna
that the
then
study,
implement
but
the
the
next
implementation.
project?
we don't-
Right.
That's.
right, because I think the worst case scenario is we don't allocate or use. The 100,000 and it gets sucked in the general fund and used for something not related to
Good
sustainability.
point.
Right.
And then we don't get
Yeah,
that,
I
and you
agree
don't
with
get
that.
money next year, if you don't get allocated,
That's
you
a-
don't use
that's
your
an
money,
excellent point.
You're gonna lose it.
you don't get the next year.
Yeah.
So, and it's only for stormwater plan. This money only goes for that.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
The 95 that we have,
Mhm.
like, only should be thinking about the stormwater.
No,
plan?
so
No.
sorry, thank you.
Anything we want to spend.
Anyway, so
Please.
that's why we're saying spend some of it on this and then maybe save it for something.
Mhm.
Okay,
But don't say this.
but you've got a couple minutes at the end of it.
This is
Oh,
the
we
first
got-
I'm hearing, I guess I don't understand that this June 30th thing was like.
That's the one that
Yeah.
The city council has July 1st to June 30th is our fiscal year. So any money that's budgeted has to be spent in that year. Otherwise it goes back into the funds. And then whatever the new budget is adopted has new money allocated.
I move, we print up a bunch more NOMO April signs. Since we know people want them.
I only have one request for one.
I'm only joking.
They did 450 of them.
Yeah,
I
I
started with
would want to spend more money on more plan, like looking, more researching, but. I don't know if you get to that anyway, you go there and then, you know, oh, this has been really bad for a long time, but then you're gonna have to spend some money on researching it and
Mhm.
to do it right. I mean, you know, you can't just slap. Oh, let's just put a little storm drain here and we find.
Right.
I won't go into this, but just for the record, the ideal, I don't know the realities of this, but we wanted to use this type of money for sustainability. What I would love to see the city be able to do is to establish some sort of small grants for residents for solar or EV charging, clean energy grants. And make that available. But, again, I don't know the reality.
Or what about like energy audits? You know, just to be able to figure out where in their house it would make sense to do some sustainability related renovations.
Yeah.
Jamie, how much
That's
money are
good.
we allocating to the green dining, or do we have that?
We don't have that figure yet. Before we move forward, though, I want to
Sorry.
give Mike a chance to weigh in here. Mike, do you have an opinion one way or another on what we've been discussing?
Please don't spend the money on a report that we're not gonna fund to do any work on.
Okay,
If we've only done 5 of the 40 from a report 20 something years ago, we're not gonna do it on a new report.
That's in
So,
the last 8 years.
Yeah.
Previous years before that, there was probably some more projects. that were done.
yeah, I don't know. I just think another report's not gonna help.
Yeah. Todd, would you say it's still functional? Like you can still use it?
Yeah,
Right.
Okay.
and I tried to use it several times and the residents were, oh, yeah, this is great. Please help us with the flooding. I go through, get it all designed and we're ready to go. We need easement signed. Oh, I'm not signing that. So I wasted $30,000 on design and then people didn't want to move forward. So those are projects that are still sitting there in the plan because they didn't get to move forward. The
Interesting.
biggest plan that's on there is from 2002 was a $10 million plan in 2002.
So what we
It's
really
probably
need,
$100 million this year.
so we need a professional persuader, right? No, seriously,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Somebody that
Maybe
can
that's a
go.
part of the speaker series.
I need a bodyguard.
Okay, so because in the interest of time, y'all, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 voting members. And for the record, I would be willing to say, hey, we'll partner with you and we'll just say $25,000 toward the plan. That's almost nothing, considering the cost of the plan. That said, I know because it's important to understand that we are being proactive in helping our community, address some of the.
It's 1/6, that's not nothing.
Okay, thanks.
You know, more or less.
But so I don't want to say like absolutely not, but I appreciate everybody weighing in here. And as of right now, there's only 3 of us who agree with like a partial. And there's 2, 3, 4, 5 people who say.
So I didn't realize that we had this June 30th deadline. So I was modifying my input to say, well, I think consistent with Jeff, that if we need to spend it on something rather than lose it.
I'm gonna,
But I'm still pretty skeptical of the plan of the.
yeah,
so-
okay,
And I just want to reiterate, I guess before I really agreed to it, I would want to know who feels like they could use this information and for what purpose.
okay.
I'm sorry to give you another.
So
job.
if we don't use the money though, it goes back to the main fund, then the city council can choose it if they want to do it. And take that money and apply it to it, or apply it to actually doing our project with that 100,000. They can do whatever they want with it if we don't use. it. So I would defer to just give it back to them, let them do something with it. If we can't come up with something in the next month and a half to spend it on.
I'm feeling very panicky about this month and a half thing. All of a sudden, this is like news to me. And I knew that I just was under the impression that we had a 3-year runway to go through.
Spend every single penny of the ARP.
Okay,
That's the city has to do that.
yes,
But they're not appropriating, they didn't appropriate the full $4.6 million when we first got it.
Yeah.
They've only been appropriating pieces of it. as we
Okay.
go.
I imagine that, one, we have to present whatever we want by June 30th to council, and then they have to think about it and then vote on it. So I imagine that whatever we're gonna do anyway, we need to just say, dear council, we recommend that you do this with the $100,000 for a sustainability project, because I don't see any way, just like you were saying, in which
Mhm.
we're gonna get
Yeah.
a project for $100,000 taken care of by the time June 30th comes around.
So can you just?
So I'm gonna get a clarification, like, I wanna say I'll speak with Pam tomorrow, but I would like to, because it's very likely that they could be like, yes, here's this money again, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
That's
so
true.
just like, hang on to the funds and.
Yeah, like, so know you are
This money-
developing plans right
Yeah.
now, and I'm with Jeff on the idea of solar support, and we have 9 minutes, so we need to snap this up, John.
That was the point, I was gonna make that if we give it back, well, if the council takes it back, because I just don't see any realistic way we're gonna hit this
Yeah.
30 deadline. That
And use.
it would be time well spent to do our due diligence, say, okay, well, what is the most high impact way? I think the idea of helping set up a subsidy program for people who want to do solar or EV charging stations, and then we gotta figure out, is that
Yeah.
legal with that, can we move that money
Yeah.
directly to the residents?
Yeah.
What does that look like? How much is the overhead of managing it? But it seems to me we just wanna like take a breath and say, okay, let's look at these different ideas and cost them out and figure out what gives us the most CO2 removed per dollar
Yeah.
spent.
Yeah.
And crank it
Okay.
out.
We have a whole solar thing that we still need to talk about, and we don't have any time for it. So I'm gonna follow up in an email, to kind of highlight this language that the city just cleaned up the code so that all areas can have solar panels front facing, historic districts included in that. This is a big deal. We wanted to make sure that solar access wasn't getting snagged up here in City Hall for our residents to access all the benefits that are available to them through the IRA. And so we will have a celebration of some sort, and I am so cheesy, but if anybody else has a better name to call it, we can talk about this. I will be emailing you, and I'm sorry, but start to get this organized, because as we know, June is around the corner.
And that will be in June.
I would like to see this in June, yes. Pam had an idea of around the solstice, so I'm like,
Oh, I love that.
that's a really like kind of a fun hook, and who had, like, Llewellyn's has panels already. There's ideas that I already have been like working in my head, but I need obviously you all and your input. And I will be asking for subcommittee folks to be a part of that. So if that is something that lights you up, oh, she didn't, then go ahead and give that some consideration for being a subcommittee for this solar effort. I want to make a big deal about it because I think it's super important for our residents. Yes,
Quick question.
yes.
When do we redo building codes, residential and commercial?
It's not my purview. That's Mara Perry's feelings.
Do you have any idea what?
I have no
that
idea.
Calendar is?
I don't know either, but we can definitely talk about
And
that.
in terms of effort that takes CO2 emissions down. in a
Yep.
Cost effective. way.
Yep.
I know that Mara
It's
has
usually
tried
Collin
to do
County. Usually
some
Collin County.
updates to the code that would have been more sustainable, and they don't always make it through the zoning commission. So there's a lot of room for improvement on the zoning
I
commission.
bet the code really sucks, to tell you the truth, just because the HBA rules this town when it comes to code.
They usually follow whatever the county does, whatever building code they adopt. And the municipalities follow the county. So.
The most recent county code was an improvement, substantial improvement. But anyway.
Yeah, we'll
We should
table
figure
that
that out.
and
I
yeah.
think that's.
yeah.
a high
Todd, we
value.
have 3 minutes.
I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna need a subcommittee to meet with sustainability, green space and traffic advisory for this grant opportunity that's due July.
Great.
So if anybody wants to be involved in that for the Complete Streets grant, so
So the complete streets.
yes,
So GSAC, traffic and us.
yes.
Okay,
So can come up with subcommittees, we can all meet and discuss
do
what they
we,
want me to put into the grant.
Okay,
on bringing the line here, but do we want to just roll the same complete streets subcommittee over to the grant as well?
I
That's
think
brilliant.
that's logical.
Seems logical,
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah.
That's been working on it, yeah.
All right, for a motion to adjourn. This is a long one again. I'm sorry, y'all. 5:27. Motion to adjourn. Carla, second.
Second.
Jeff, thank you. Thanks, everybody.